That's when I got a message from my mom that somebody named Nick Jones called her house, her and my father's house, and wants me to call back. I was a little reluctant to call back. I wasn't, I was so bummed out. I wasn't interested in talking to anybody. I met him when he was in Spooky Tooth because Black Sheep's manager was an A&M Records rep.
Interesting.
Jim Taylor, his name was.
Yeah. Huh?
Yep. And so he took us to see Spooky Tooth at the Auditorium Theater in Rochester. And we met the guys, and I gave Mick the 2 Black Sheep albums to listen to. And so when he called me, he said he was real sorry about the potential demise of the band. He said, but I'm not with Spooky Tooth anymore. He says, I've started my own band. He says, and I listened to your albums. I'm really interested in you being the singer for my new band. Would you come to New York and audition? And I said, you know, Mick, I said, that's a real nice thing to say to me. So I did. Apparently, I found out when I got to New York that there were already over 30 singers that have auditioned. So I wasn't the first guy that auditioned by a long shot.
Yeah.
And so I spent about 3 or 4 days with the band singing. They auditioned me in a recording studio. So when I sang, they were recording it. So at a later point after I left, they could listen to it. And then they had a new song that they were working on, and they threw me into the control room with a pen and paper, and in front of the mics, they wanted me to write a few lyrics and then sing them to the new song. Boy, put me on the spot, you know?
I love it.
And I delivered, you know? And then after that, Mick says, come on over to my house tonight, have dinner, and we can work on a couple songs. So we did. And then the next day we went to our little rehearsal spot and worked on more songs. And I took Mick aside. I says, when I came here to audition, I said I had 1 pair of pants, 3 T-shirts, and a change of underwear. I says, I've gone through all of those already, and I haven't been able to wash my clothes. I says, I've got to go home and get some clothes. By that time, before I left, I says, look, I says, we've been writing, we've been recording, we've been playing. I says, but you know what? You guys have not told me. Am I in? And they says, yeah, you're in.
Well, I think what's amazing, Lou, is I want people to really understand as you're telling the story that this is perseverance and dedication at its highest level. Here you are just pursuing this. You know, we say it's a dream, but you had this deep passion that you wanted to be a part of something bigger, and the sacrifices that you were putting through just came with the territory. So now, was the band called Foreigner at the early times? When
we were rehearsing in our manager, Bud Breger, had the top floor of a building in Manhattan. And so there were offices all around it, but the center was a big open room, and that's where we would write and rehearse. Mick and I would go to his house after rehearsals and work on new ideas, and then we'd bring them in the next day or so, and the band would start playing them, and we would craft them, you know. And we would work on the arrangement too, not just put together a song like a slab of meat, you know. We would work on the arrangement, because Mick, as I found out at that time, was personal friends with Paul and George and John and Ringo. As a matter of fact, when they were playing in Germany, he was there almost every night because he had a band of his own that played occasionally in Germany, but he was there to see the Beatles every night, to the point where he was the only other British guy that they knew in Germany. And when they found out he played guitar, he was on stage with them every night.
So he got a chance to really kind of absorb that magical feeling that the Beatles had. That feeling was also brought into Foreigner.
Yes, it was. Mick is a wonderful songwriter, and writing songs like that are second nature to him.
You know, I'm always intrigued with the names of bands. Foreigner has become such an iconic name for the band. Who thought of that? How'd that come into play?
Well, at first we were calling ourselves Trigger. And I said, Mick, I says, one of the triggers I know is me. It's a horse. I think that's Roy Rogers' horse.
Roger's horse was called Trigger, exactly.
Yeah, and when I said that, everybody looked at each other, and that was the end of that name. And for a few months after that, we had no name. And then Mick brought up foreigner because there were 3 Brits, 3 Americans. So no matter what side of the ocean we were on, we were still foreigners.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. So the name stuck, and here you are. But songs like Waiting for a Girl Like You and I Want to Know What Love Is, you helped co-write these songs, correct?
I did help co-write them, although I didn't get any credit for I Want to Know What Love Is.
Where did the co-writing lyrical part of you come out of?
You know, I've always loved writing melodies and lyrics. I liked working on arrangements and everything too. And he was the master of arrangements. And you know, so we crafted both of those songs together. Extremely proud of both of them. You know, so after we would record an album, Mick and I would sit down and we'd run down the list of the songs, and he would say, "What do you think you want on this song?" You know, and I would say, I think this one I contributed quite a bit. I would ask for about 40%. You know, and he said that's fine. You know, and there were a lot of songs like Hot Blooded and things like that where it was 50-50. A lot of songs, and Waiting for a Girl. You know, he really wrote most of that, but I had a good part of that too. I think that was 65-30, and then Ian McDonald had a little piece of that too. I was fine with that, but then I Want to Know What Love Is. The two of us. He had a home in Bedford Hills. His home was about 15 minutes from my home in Katona. So I would drive over to his house and we would work on that song. There'd be moments where it was just magic, and then we hit our head on something creatively that we couldn't get to the next point, you know. And so we'd almost have to put the song away for a couple of weeks and come back to it again, you know. I felt we had worked our tails off to make that song what it is, you know. And at the end of that album, when it was time to decide what the percentages were, you know, I wrote down what I thought it should be, and he'd write down what he thought it should be. I think I wrote down 65-35, you know, 35 for me, 65 for him. And I opened a little piece of paper that what he thought it was, and he wrote down 95-5. And I was so stunned and crushed that he think I contributed next to nothing to that song. And here's another one for you. He was working with the choir in one studio while we were recording that song. I was in another studio with an engineer singing the lead vocals. Okay, I did them by myself. I did all the ad libs. I did all the emotional little nuances and stuff, you know. And usually when I'd sing the lead to a song, especially a song as potentially as important as that one, he was right in the control room, commenting on every line. This could be better. That you could do that. You could do this. You know, I did the whole thing myself while he was working with the choir, and that ended up being the lead vocal. I don't even remember him saying "good job, Lou," but that was the lead vocal. And you know, I thought that was a pretty serious accomplishment for me to only to be denigrated to an offer of 5%. That put a wedge in us. That was the beginning of the end.
Boy, this is the dynamics of a family type band as they get together in the process, and it really kind of, unfortunately, sometimes is extremely challenging. So the business side you would discuss beforehand or afterhand? After
it was recorded, we would discuss who put what into the song, and here's what the split should be. And for the most part, we were always within 5 or 10%, and we'd iron it out, you know. I said 65-35, 65 to him, 35 to me, and he comes back with 95.5. I should get 25 just for the vocal performance.
Right.
All I could think of was greed.
Mm.
It was an awesome song. We all knew it was going to be a smash. This was his chance to step on me, you know. And you know what I told him after 95.5? I says, 5, Mick. I says, you should just keep it all. And he did.
Hmm.
He didn't say, no, Lou, no, please, let's work on it. Let's do. I said, Mick, you should just keep 5% for me after all the work I did on this song. I says, you should just keep it all. And he didn't say anything. He just kept it all.
Interesting.
And do you know the millions and millions that song has brought in over the years? It's been covered by at least 3 or 4 artists who have gone to #1 with that song.
Yeah. Boy, this really is unfortunately very typical in the industry and how relationships fall apart and are challenged in our industry. And these are lessons for people to understand as they listen to this, to prepare themselves for some of the challenges and prepare themselves for the negotiations of what's happening. Did you have an entertainment lawyer? Was there anyone that assisted you in any of this?
No.
Would having an entertainment lawyer been a better step for you?
Maybe. I Want to Know What Love Is was on our 5th album. I certainly knew him long enough and knew the way he is.
Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel. We'll see you real soon.